of New Jersey. Page 879.
Without objection, the
line 7.
amendment will be considered as read, and the gentleman from New Jersey is recognized to explain his amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like, well, let me say this omnibus amendment is in essence what we discussed last Friday in this committee, but we do have certain changes, and I'd like to discuss those changes. First of all, the omnibus amendment no longer includes the Class Act, a bill that I introduced with Chairman Emeritus Dingell. We will be discussing the Class Acts separately. I also no longer included the Wise Woman extension, a program we discussed also last Friday and which Ms. Capps will be offering as a standalone amendment as well. And as discussed on Friday, the menu labeling provisions will also be discussed separately from the omnibus, and Mr. Matheson will be introducing that amendment. And finally, we have included a few minor but important technical correction amendments spearheaded by Ms. Matsui, Ms. Christensen, and Ms. Sutton, which have all been reviewed and cleared by the Republicans. As I said on Friday, this amendment is the product of a lot of hard work on behalf of many members of this committee. I thank you for all your efforts, and I support this amendment and urge my colleagues to do the same. Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent at this time to strike from my amendment language on page 2 relating to the Sutton amendment that was actually adopted earlier this evening. So I would ask unanimous consent to strike the Sutton amendment, which we've already adopted.
Reserving the right to object.
Gentlemen, was there unanimous consent request?
It was a UC request to strike from my amendment language on page 2 relating to the Sutton amendment that was already adopted.
Okay.
I'm just reserving the right. I'm not going to object. I'm just reserving the right.
Yes, gentleman's recognized in his
because I want to make sure that we all agree on what is in the amendment. My understanding, in addition to things that you've said have been taken out of the amendment, the menu labeling, the Class Act, the things that are still in it that are supported on both sides of the aisle, the expanding volunteer liability protection to volunteers at community health centers, that's still in it, is that correct?
Yes.
The providing grants for nurses in managed health centers is still in it, is that correct? The allowing behavioral health centers to receive grants for providing mental health services, that's in it.
Yes.
The reauthorization of the telehealth program is in it.
Yes.
The reauthorization of the trauma care center program is in it.
Correct.
The codifying of the Emergency Care Coordination Center at ASPER is in it.
Correct.
The classifying of dental providers as emergency responders is in it.
Yes.
The providing research for pain care and management is in it.
Yes.
The encouragement of activities towards postpartum depression that Mr. Rush has been so strong for, that's in it.
Correct.
And the section that allows for influenza immunization at schools is in it.
Yes.
Plus some changes to a Matsui amendment on a requirement to establish a national strategy through evidence-based clinical and community prevention wellness activities. That's in it.
Yes.
I believe that's it.
That's it, and we just
that's all?
did the UC on the Sutton amendment.
Yeah. So with that understanding, I will remove my objection. Well, I will not object. I do support the unanimous consent request.
Gentleman from
New Jersey.
Gentleman from New Jersey, yield to me.
Yes, Mr. Dingell.
I have a unanimous consent request this time. It's an amendment regarding school-based clinics. This is this unanimous consent request is offered pursuant to discussions between myself and Mr. Hall. And I'm informed that Mr. Hall is in full approval of this. And the amendment would add to the amendment offered by the gentleman from New Jersey the following language. Page 1003, after line 17, insert the following new paragraph. 4, no funds may be used to provide abortions. Page 1008, after line 6, insert the following new subparagraph. E does not provide abortion services. and make appropriate conforming punctuation and formatting changes. I'm glad to yield to my friend.
Reserving the right to object, and again, I
course.
will not object, but this unanimous consent request is the result of a collaboration or cooperation between yourself and others on the majority side and Congressman Hall on an amendment that he was prepared to offer. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And Congressman Hall, who's not in the room, is supportive of this. Is that correct?
I am informed that Mr. Hall is supportive of this. He and I had a discussion on the floor, and we agreed to this at this time. The final language is just now available to me and to the committee.
With that understanding, we will not object. We support the unanimous consent request of Congressman Dingell.
We've heard the unanimous consent request from the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Dingell. Is there any objection? Hearing none, that will be the order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pallone,
Will the gentleman from New Jersey yield?
well, just before we do that, Mr. Pallone, you had a unanimous consent request.
I had the
Four.
first thing was the UC to strike from my amendment, the Sutton amendment, which was already
Okay.
adopted.
Is there any objection to that unanimous consent request?
We don't object, Mr. Chairman.
If there's no objection, that will be the order.
And then we have Mr. Matheson. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Matheson had a UC also, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Matheson?
Thank you. I ask unanimous consent that the Matheson-Upton food labeling amendment be put back into the en bloc amendment. We've had discussions with both sides of the aisle. I think we've resolved the concerns that were expressed on Friday, and so I ask unanimous consent it could be included in the en bloc amendment.
Is there any objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Upton is not here. Before I agree to that, well, you just walked in. We'll ask Mr. Upton if he has an objection to. Okay. All right. Then I won't object to that.
Mr.
We
Chair.
have unanimous consent pending by Mr. Matheson. Is there any objection to that unanimous consent request? If not, that will be the order.
Mr. Chair.
Anything else that people want
Mr.
to know?
Chairman.
Who's seeking recognition? Yes, Mr. Pitts.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I just want to confirm with Mr. Pallone that they did insert into the amendment the UC agreement on postpartum,
Yes, on the school-based
Section
clinic.
102 that has passed in previous Congress. Is that
It's in there by a separate section called Sense of the Congress, Joe.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'm going to give it a try. I would like to ask unanimous consent that the whole bill be considered as part of the Pallone amendment.
I do object to that, Mr. Chairman.
I thought we were on a roll.
Roll there, yeah. Well, don't get too antsy.
So we have before us the Pallone amendment as it further was expanded by some unanimous consent requests. Further discussion of that amendment? If not, let's proceed to the vote. All those in favor of the Pallone amendment and all the other amendments attached thereto by unanimous consent, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature, the amendment in block is adopted.